Good evening and welcome to Biz1st in Focus. Pleasure to have you on board today as well. Today we have a guest who is no stranger to the show. He's the Deputy Minister of Public Enterprise Development, Mr. Ram Ratna. Very good evening to you and welcome to the show. Nice to have you on board as usual.
Good evening, good evening.
From the Deputy Minister of Investment Promotion to the Deputy Minister of Public Enterprise Development, what made the Prime Minister change portfolios? Have you adopted to this post now?
Yeah, I mean, I can't answer for the Prime Minister, but what I could say is it's broadly in the area of the economy. On one side, you know, you are attracting investment, right? On the other side, on the new portfolio, what you are really doing is trying to make public enterprises more efficient, more productive, and you are trying to reduce the dependency on the budget and basically reduce the burden the taxpayer is carrying. So it's on the economy, but two distinctly separate areas.
Have you been able to adopt this post now as a Deputy Minister of Public Enterprise Development?
Yeah, I think either of those jobs wouldn't cause me a problem, either of them. I accept both as a challenge. This is a new challenge, and the difference in this one is it's, I would say, a new ministry. And there's a philosophy running behind this, that is that public enterprises normally have been basically influenced heavily or politicized. The thing is, when politicians make decisions based on politics. But commercial public enterprises need to be driven based on commercial lines. And therefore, the people best to run these commercial public enterprises are actually the managers in those. So I think the thinking behind creating this ministry was that these will be basically run on commercial lines, and therefore Minister Kabir Hashim was put, and I have been put to assist the minister.
Now, governments are usually run by politicians and not managers, Deputy Minister. Can you all sustain business if you all go ahead like this? You have politicians who want to make the headlines and not thinking about the betterment of society. What are the changes you see in the next few years in terms of managers running businesses? Because you just said it's important that managers run businesses.
Yeah, I think we need to look at it a little bit more in the historical perspective. Governments have responsibility. Governments have responsibility for basic needs of people. You know, for example, population should be free of hunger. So for nutrition, food security, then health, education, and basic needs. It can be pure drinking water, electricity. But what has happened over the last 60-70 years after independence is the government has ventured into other areas, you see, and they ventured into commercial areas. So suddenly over a 60-70 year period, you have, apart from things like providing air services, and airlines, you are into agriculture, you are into the production of, let's say, cakes of soap, whole range of consumer items, goods and services, and these are commercial items. Then the question arises is, should a government actually be in that kind of production? Now my view is this: the way to really determine that factor is ultimately public commercial enterprises should provide a good or a service, and that good or a service is being sold to the public, to the consumer, to the citizen. Then can we provide that good or that service to the citizen at the highest quality at the most competitive price? That's the acid test. So if we can't, I don't think we should be in it. So public enterprises should be, right, for a strategic reason. It should be in public enterprise for a strategic reason. If it's not for a strategic reason, right, then it definitely should be highest quality product or service for the lowest possible price. The question is, can it be done, or do you need competition? Can citizens do it better? Can the private sector do it better? We have to ask ourselves those honest questions.
I want to know, does this government have a proper strategy a monitoring strategy of institutes like the Ceylon Electricity Board, Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, in Lanka, so on and so forth, which has made a lot of losses over the last few years? Do you all have a monitoring mechanism?
Yeah, I would say we are in the process of putting a monitoring mechanism. As I said at the beginning, our ministry is a new ministry, right? We're setting it up from scratch. But I would like to put some perspective behind that question. The perspective I would like to put is this, that we are a government which is a little more than 2 months old. Because actually our government was formed after the general election on the 17th of August. The government that followed the election of President Sirisena was a temporary government. It was a minority government, and as you remember, the first regulation, financial regulation we brought to Parliament was defeated in Parliament. So actually our government is a new government, right, and we are just a little bit more than 2 months old. If you look at it in perspective, right, Mahinda Rajapaksa's government was approximately 120 months old. Chandrika Kumaratunga's government was approximately 130 months old. So you had a period of maybe more than 250 months of a UPFA coalition-led government, and ours is only 2 months old. So I think when I'm answering that question, I'm putting that perspective is, it takes time. It takes time.
How long?
I think that the most of the things that we have talked about in our program, within a 60-month period, a 5-year period, I think we will be able to accomplish a fair amount of what we have actually suggested in it. And I would say that it will probably take a minimum of 2 years, a minimum, right, to basically put the foundation and do the reforms that are required.
The country's economy right now is in a grave situation. You could term it as a decisive time, a critical time for Sri Lanka in terms of 2 elections, and you have a new government coming into play. The economy is not really healthy at the moment. What is the way forward, Deputy Minister? Your government promised reform, your government made a lot of pledges, but nothing has really materialized, even after 2 months.
Yeah, I wouldn't completely agree with the statement you said. I think that, you know, if you look at an economy, the economy is going cycles. And there's an up cycle and there's a down cycle. So it will go for several years like that, then there'll be a down cycle, and then again there'll be up cycle and a down cycle. That's a general way the economy works. If you look at the global economy, right, we have been fortunate over the last 15 years, right, that the global economy has consistently grown, and the Asian economy has grown more rapidly. India and China have grown, you know, very, very rapidly. Sri Lanka is a part of that economy, and we have been in the growth phase. China grew, right, over the last decade at 9.2% GDP growth on average. So there were years in which China grew at 11%. If you take India, India grew, right, at 7, 8, 9%, right, China 10 and 11. Sri Lanka was a part of that growth, and at the height we grew at 7 plus, right, and then we averaged over 5, you know, during that period. So we've done reasonably well, better than the world average. Not as good as China and India, but done comparatively reasonably well.
So the former regime did well?
No, it is, you know, I think we place too much emphasis, right, by looking at the economy very narrowly. We were part of the growth story in Asia, right, see, and that's how we basically grow. Now what's happening is, if you take the global economy, there's a slowdown in the global economy. If you take the Asian economy, there's a slowdown in the Asian economy. If you take China in particular and look at the Chinese economy, from the levels of 11, 10, 9, it's coming down this year to 7. Next year maybe to 6, and maybe it might go lower before it picks up again. So
you're saying that Sri Lanka is now in the down cycle, and the people in the country should tighten their belts?
No, I would say that not Sri Lanka. Basically the whole Asian region, right, is in the down cycle on the economy. We should basically recognize on the economy there are external factors and internal factors. There are factors that we cannot control, and there are factors that we can control, and what we need to do. So what is the objective in the down cycle? I would say the objective is in the down cycle is that we need to manage our economy in a way that we will do better than everybody else. But you can't go back and say, let's compare it with 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. I don't think that that's a reasonable comparison. But if you compare it with the rest of what's happening today, are we doing better or not? That's the challenge that we have, and I believe that that's a challenge that we can take and win.
Why wasn't this down cycle projected during the election campaign, saying Sri Lanka is now in the down cycle, we cannot do that great compared to other nations? Why wasn't this projected, Deputy Minister? However, what you all said was pledges after pledges, 10,000 rupee increments for state sector employees. Nothing has materialized. People are questioning the credibility of this government now.
No, I would say I don't agree with you that we definitely are going to do better than other countries. What I'm trying to say is the comparison with the past. If there were times in which the European economies would grow at 3%. Then it became normal for them to grow at 1%. You see, so you can't go back and say, 20 years ago Europe grew at this and today it's growing at this. I don't think that's a fair comparison.
The pledges your government made following the 8th of January, you all had an interim budget coming into force, and this budget had a lot of benefits to the public, the masses. But most of those benefits have not boiled down to the grassroots.
So if I were to finish my previous point, our challenge is to stay ahead of other countries and do better than the region. And I think we will stay ahead of other countries and we will do better than the region. Coming to your question on the pledges made, I agree. In an election period, pledges are made. I think the first sign of it came in the budget in November 2014. The budget in November 2014 basically was a giveaway budget. It was a clear indication from the former finance minister, who was also the president of the country, that he was going for an election the moment we heard the proposals in the budget. So during a budget period, what do? You go to the public with pledges and giveaways. So that's what he did. He went. Now, unfortunately for him, he lost the presidential election. You see, and there was a new president in place. So the new president comes, he forms a new government, which is a minority government. You can't continue the minority government. Then you have to basically go for an election, consolidate your position through a parliamentary election. So it is election, basically it's election time.
The public.
It's election time in the country. So what the interim budget did is it went down the same road. And basically prepared for the next election. So I would say this, right? I wouldn't call it deceiving the public. I would definitely say that there were giveaways in it. And if you look at it, some of those giveaways have actually materialized. For example, there was said that we will bring prices down. And if you remember, all the prices of energy products were brought down, right? Every price of energy products were brought down. Now, the international...
At the same time, Deputy Minister, we saw the manner in which your government also has gone on the footsteps of the previous regime. If that is the case, if you're saying that this was a giveaway budget, the magic wand suddenly seemed to be now in the hands of the UNP-led government, because I recollect in Parliament, your government said very clearly, as the opposition members said, suddenly the finance minister has a magic wand. And then the magic wand has now been given to the UNP-led government to have a new government now in place, a unity government, a coalition government in place as well. We saw on Tuesday, earlier this week, that the debt ceiling was increased to an additional 400 billion rupees. Are we on the right track, Deputy Minister? You have been in the corporate sector for many, many years. Are we on the right track? Are you not worried?
Yeah, I won't agree with saying that anyone has a magic wand on the economy. I think
that's what your party said in the opposition.
No. I won't even say our party said. There may have been individuals who would have said various...
Representing your party.
Various things, right? But clearly, we all who are in the corporate sector, those with economics background, and even the general public, the consuming public, knows that there is no magic wand on the economy. So that period of the election, right, what has happened is really a continuation of what happened in a previous period. If you take the post-war economy, right, what has happened in the post-war economy is we were, despite the lack of military conflict, we were unable to really attract investment. That was a fundamental issue. Then what happens is when you're unable to attract investment and you want to keep the growth rate going, is you go the consumption route. So you liberalize, make credit available, and you liberalize. So private consumption grew faster in that period than private investment, which then shows, if you take the two curves, there is a gap between private consumption and private investment. I agree with you. Both budgets in the last year didn't help to close that. It really widened it. So, and I'm in agreement. And so I'm saying is we need to understand that that's what actually happened, right? Now the challenge we have is to correct that, right? So I'm not saying that it was a question about just only the last two budgets. That have been happening since the post-war period. So the economy clearly needs some reform. There's some reforms have to be basically brought in to correct this situation. Now the backdrop is, if we corrected that path early on, in the earlier period, in 11 and 12 and so forth, the economic conditions in the region and in the world were favorable. Now we are facing an unfavorable situation in the region, right? And we have to make the corrections. So it's a little bit like this. I have to put it another way. You're building a house, right? And the last government built a house. They built a house, and what did it do? It started to color all the walls in different colors, making it look attractive. But the problem was with the foundation. I am saying that now what we need to do is deal with the foundation, the reforms, the basic things we have to deal with there. It's going to take at least 2 years to deal with that. If you get that firm foundation, then I think we are going to see the real economy growing.
How are you going to build this firm foundation? By breaking the house and building from the bottom, or are you going to have the house and try to make the foundation?
No, it's like this, you know, what's there is there. I mean, you are given a certain set of circumstances, no? You're given a certain set of circumstances. So I think that if you look, we are a country which has two, what you call the twin deficits. We have a current account deficit and we have a budget deficit, right? On the current account deficit, right, basically for a long considerable period of time our exports haven't grown. So clearly there has to be an emphasis on how are we going to get our exports to grow. We will need to get our exports growing, right? We will need new markets, right? We will need new products, and we will need new markets, new products and new companies we will need. Because if you look at Sri Lanka's, for example, its export, right, structure, we have the export structure of basically a low-income country, though we are called a low-middle-income country. What that means is that most of our exports are still going out of large companies, right, the big companies. SMEs don't really export in this country. So if you look at SME as a percentage of the total exports, it's less than 5%. But if you take a middle-income country, even the countries in Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand and so forth, right, they have 30 to 40% of the exports are going out of SMEs. So to make that transition, some government intervention will be needed. Because if you're a small company, right, you have got used to basically selling in the local market. So you are unable to basically take the country risk of an unknown country. You don't know about the default risk of the person at that end. So if you go to a financial institution or a bank, the bank is not going to be comfortable that you can take it. So the bank's premium is high, you can't afford it, you can't do it. So government intervention means the government will share in the risk, on the country risk and on the default risk, while you keep the commercial risk with the producing party. So that's why government intervention is needed on exports. Other thing you need is you need a competitive exchange rate, right? Because without a competitive exchange rate, exports can't really compete. In the interim phase, you have an adjustment period, because first your imports go up before the exports begin to adjust. So that's basically on the current account side. On the fiscal side, right, we have large expenditures. That's what you were talking throughout about the whole election period and all, which needs to be reined in. Then you have a revenue deficit. As you know, Sri Lanka has one of the poorest revenue collections, about 11% of GDP when it should be higher. So taxes need to be rationalized, taxes need to be implemented, taxes need to be collected. So both the twin deficits, right? So we are in a difficult position. So how did we really bridge this budget? In the past, the government went, it borrowed largely in foreign currency at exorbitant rates, right? And then we had to keep paying those debts. What has the new government done since January 8th? Largely the borrowings have been rupee-funded borrowings, right? That's what the new government has done. So in the rupee-funded borrowings, it is not unusual to go to Parliament and basically raise the borrowing limit.
But your government, your party has always said that the borrowings were high, and you're doing it in a different way by borrowing it in rupees, is it?
What I think we need to understand is this is not a situation we have created. This is a situation in which we are responding to. You see, our government hasn't created this. Basically, a bad management of the economy over a considerable period of time. I am particularly referring to the post-war opportunity that was missed. Now we are facing the consequences of it and we need to correct it. I will agree with you on this. You know, if you have to correct it, what are the measures that you are going to put into actually correcting it? And I think that we can debate. But this is not a situation we have created. This is a situation we have inherited and we are trying to correct.
Let's say an individual on the road who voted for you on the 17th of August general elections comes up to you and asks, Deputy Minister, things are looking bad. Are you not worried? What would be your answer?
No, I would say, I would try to explain the facts to the person, because I think we need to understand the facts of what we can and can't do.
An ordinary layman would understand about the down cycle and the up cycle.
I think people understand if you explain it. If you have to explain it, people understand. I firmly believe that if you explain things, people are rational, people would understand it. Most people said that that's not true. I completely disregarded that view and I continued to try to explain it. And I think it was vindicated that the intelligent public decided that I should remain in politics, for example. And I'm very thankful to them. And I will certainly try to serve them, because of the confidence that they placed. What I'm saying is this, if you are saying it to me like this, over the last 3 weeks, right, I have had more than 500 young people who have sent in their biodatas and CVs to me. About 400 of them I have personally seen and talked to for a few minutes, personally seen and talked to, right? About 400 of them. So they really need of jobs. No, just think about it. If they are to be given real jobs in the economy, what will we do? If we are to give them real jobs in the economy, there has to be investment, goods and services have to be produced, factories have to be open, service centers have to be open, they have to be absorbed into taking the real jobs. What did the past government do when they were faced with this? What the past government did was, they basically took these people and said, okay, let's put them in the petroleum ministry, let's put them in the municipality, let's put them in some other ministry, and they bloated the public service of the country. Right? Now you can do that for a while. What are you actually doing? What are you doing? You are doing, giving people a welfare benefit because they need an income, but you are not creating a real job. That's why I said, I think on the economy we need to be actually ask the hard questions and the truth. Let's say people come and tell me, okay, I want a job in the municipality. Municipality may be in Colombo, municipality may be in Moratuwa. I'm asking the public, let's say we add those 500 people into the municipality. Do you really believe that your municipal services are going to improve? That is exactly what the previous government did. As a result, Sri Lanka has the largest public service in the world, even bigger than China, as a percentage of its population when you take the public service of this country. That's because the real economy didn't grow. So politicians, why do we do that? Because we don't want to face the truth, right?
So, Deputy Minister, you are not worried about the country's economy?
No, I am. I'm not worried in that sense. What I'm trying to say is the solution. We have a problem. But the solution that we give for the problem must be a sustainable solution. So, us adding those people, right, doesn't solve their problem or the public's problem. We need to get real investment, create real jobs, and get those young people going. So, we have a solution. What is our government going to do? And you'll see that when the budget is announced, right? We have a solution. Our living standards in Sri Lanka are higher than in the rest of the region, right? To sustain a higher living standards, you can't give young people jobs in government or anywhere at 10,000 and 15,000 rupees a month. That just won't work in Sri Lanka. That might work in the rest of South Asia. So what do you have to do? You have to upskill the young person. Upskill it. So we have to go in goods and services which have a higher technological input. To do that, we have to invest in them, in their education and their skills. Our government is committed to increasing the investment in education and skills. It will take time, but you will see the commitment coming in the budget in November, that we are going in to basically creating more a knowledge-based economy, because that's going to be the solution in the long run.
You have a ministry, the Public Enterprise Development Ministry, which comes under your purview as well as the Deputy Minister. You have the government, you have a coalition government now in place. You all have a 5-year plan, a 5-year vision, 2 years plan for this coalition government. Will this government last?
I think that there's one thing that clear is the government will last. And the reason the government will last is because the constitutionally, nobody could actually dismiss the government. Parliament has to continue, and Parliament has to resolve its issues. And therefore, unlike in the earlier period, that external influence won't work. I think the question to ask is whether within the 2-year period, where we are driving it through a coalition, whether the coalition can achieve its goals within the 2-year period. I think we mustn't forget something here, right? We have had adversarial politics in this country for 60 to 70 years. The two main political parties have been adversarial over a long period of time. This is the first time in the history of this country that the United National Party and the Sri Lanka Freedom Party are sitting on the same side in Parliament. And I think in that sense it's timely. It's timely because we have issues to do with reform. One of the issues to do with reform is dealing with our post-war issues, the issues that are coming out of the United Nations Human Rights Council. If the fact that we have a unity government, we are definitely in a far more powerful position to truthfully deal with those issues. Truth-seeking, justice, reconciliation, reparation. Because we have a joint. Otherwise, what would have happened is, if one party took a position, the other party would have taken a different position. Now we have a golden opportunity, and it's already seen in the way which we are dealing with the issues internationally, a golden opportunity to face up to the truth and deal with those issues. We must never forget that the politics and the economy are together. In the past, they have tried to deal with them separately. How you deal with your politics has basically an impact on the economy. If we truthfully deal with that, I think then the economy will just follow. It's a matter of time. So I think the unity government has this huge strength, and let's use it in these 2 years.
Deputy Minister, when you're in the opposition, I pose this question to you, but I'm going to pose this when you're in the government as well. You said you are worried about the country's economy somewhat, but there are solutions, and come November, you will have the solutions on board. Question, Deputy Minister, what changes do you envisage for the future? Do you think we're on the right track?
Yeah, I think that the Prime Minister is going to make a statement in Parliament shortly, and the Prime Minister's statement is going to precede the budget statement. And the Prime Minister's statement will basically deal with the both the political and economic direction of the country for the future. And I think it will be a comprehensive statement. It will give direction, it will give a framework, it will say how we are going to deal with it. There won't be any question about hiding the issues that the country is facing. And as you can see, the way we have dealt with even the issues internationally have been very transparent and open. We have not hidden anything. This week we made all the disclosures of commissions relating even to the post-war issues that the former government's commissions, not ours. The public need to know. The public need to know the truth, and then the public should decide whether we are actually dealing with it. Sometimes the truth is not palatable, but the truth is the truth. And the sooner we recognize it, I think we have a much better chance of moving in the right direction.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister, for joining us right here on Biz1st in Focus. Pleasure to have you on board.
Thank you.